of my favorite lines of poetry comes from the last line of Mary Oliver's poem, A Summer's Day. Oliver writes, "Tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Often this line hits me like a sucker punch to the gut because it forcefully reminds me just how easily I become distracted by external things that do not sustain. When I become fearful or worried, I end up spending so much of my time and energy chasing affirmation and accolades, job security, financial stability, success. I easily lose sight of my deep center, my real desires, my true self. It's not that these things like financial stability and affirmation are bad in and of themselves, but they cannot deliver the fullness we seek. Oliver's blunt question helps refocus my attention to that center within me, that center that yearns for communion with others, with God, with myself. In today's gospel, we hear Jesus deliver a similar blow to the Pharisees. Attempting to entrap Jesus, they pose a trick question. Should they pay the census tax or not? Now, if Jesus says, yes, pay it, he could be accused of idolatry. If he says, no, don't pay it, Jesus could put himself at the mercy of Roman law. Jesus does neither. Rather, he turns the question back to the Pharisees. Show me the coin, he says. And in doing so, he reveals their hypocrisy. For there it is, the coin, stamped with Caesar's image, drawn from the depths of their own pockets. Whose image is on this coin? Caesar's, they respond. We can almost see the squirming, the aversion of eyes. And then, here it comes. Then repay to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what belongs to God. Far from an economics lesson or even a lecture on civic duty, this story, along with the other readings for today, really gets at our identity. Specifically, our identity in God. We belong to God, Jesus reminds us. When we understand the truth of that reality, we'll begin to see life as precious gift, wild, meant to be squandered on that which matters, service, beauty, truth, mercy, friendship, love. Life is not meant to be spent fearfully gathering up trappings our culture claims we need, like security, money, wealth, power. Life is not to be hoarded, it is to be poured out. This story is a familiar riff on the repeated gospel theme. Jesus comes that we may have life and have it abundantly. Even more so, Jesus comes to show us that we have life and how to live it abundantly. Jesus' courage comes from his deep abiding faith that he belongs to God. He believes to the depth of his core the words spoken at his baptism, "You are my beloved Son." Living out of this reality, Jesus is able to pour himself out, squander his energy on healing the sick, feeding the hungry, comforting the afflicted, the sorrowful, the forgotten. His single-minded confidence in God's love even takes him to his death. But it also brings forth resurrection and new life. Jesus' admonition in today's gospel calls the Pharisees to claim the truth that they too belong to God. He reminds them that their identity is not defined by the coins hidden away in their pockets, but rather the love of God in their hearts. Jesus compels them to let go of the trappings of idolatry, that which keeps them from spending their lives on what matters. And because of this, they are amazed. For those of us in positions of privilege and power, Jesus' words should cut us to the core. This gospel reveals our own tendencies to fall into the trap of idolatry. And it reminds us that we are not the money in our bank account. We are not our jobs. Our identities run much deeper than our national borders, than our political parties, than our religious affiliations. When we cling to the security that is offered in these dangerous idols, we become distracted at best and violent at worst. Just like the Pharisees carried Caesar's image in their pockets, we can become complicit to the very structures of sin that most of us claim to abhor. Letting go of these idols frees us to embrace our shared vulnerability and to live out of the shared confidence that we belong to God. There is no doubt that remembering we belong to God and living that way takes immense courage. We probably all know people who possess this courage. They're able to resist the idols of power and prestige and economic success. They live out of a place of deep freedom and joy, hope and wisdom. These are the prophets in our midst. And they're usually living quite ordinary lives. Like Jesus, they encourage us to empty our pockets of burdensome and harmful idols and fix our attention on the abiding Spirit of life, creatively laboring in and through us. Like Jesus, these prophets assure us that we belong to God first and foremost, and that we should return our life to that very God. Through their courageous witness, they ask us, what will you do with your one wild and precious life?